Nerds Amalgamated. I am the DJ, and with me today I have the Professor.
Hello.
So you loving my PT Barnum voice?
Not really.
Oh, come on. You gotta be positive after what just happened the last few days with all the crazy stories of COVID and lockdowns.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
You make it sound like it's such a bad thing, though, like with the tone of your voice.
Well, now everything's open again, which means I have to go outside and see people.
Oh well, that can be yeah, that can be bad though, especially if they have COVID and stuff. They're like, "Achoo!" Like, oh, you got COVID.
Yeah.
So what else have you been up to, Professor?
Games? Nothing's happened in the last week because of the lockdown.
Yeah, I know, but you could watch a new Netflix show. You could do some
Well,
baking.
I'd talk about that in Nerdful Things, wouldn't I?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. You could try some new project. You could try some new projects like baking or cooking some new
Well, I
recipe.
already know how to bake, so it wouldn't be a new project for me, would it?
Oh, maybe something new, like a layer cake or something like that.
A layer cake.
Yeah.
Alright, you first.
What did I do? I started cooking curries. Well, with the help of a slow cooker, which I don't really use that much.
Yes, I actually cooked French onion soup using a slow cooker the other day.
Oh yeah, how'd it pan out?
It was great.
You've got a story about the Steam Deck and how it's making waves.
Yeah, and I was going to have a bit of a rant about how you can't buy Valve hardware in Australia because Valve hate Australians, and my theory is that they don't want to deal with the consumer protection
Yeah.
because Australian consumer protection is why Valve has refunds in the first place. And then I found out that the Valve Index is coming out in a week or two, and that kind of took all the wind out of my sail there.
Oh, that
Well, it's
sucks.
hard for me to use that as one of the core parts of my argument when it doesn't really. But anyway, the Steam Deck was announced recently in the past few weeks. People are getting early access to try it out now. There's some videos, LTT and Tested have both done videos on it, and it looks very exciting. It's basically a Switch, but instead of having the Joy-Cons and Switch hardware, it's a full laptop type setup. Presumably, you'll be able to replace parts in it. Don't know yet. We'll have to wait for the teardown and for the production version as well. Currently, there's just dev kits, but it has can run full Windows if you wanted to.
Ooh.
Valve's creating a custom Linux distribution for it because with Valve's Proton, you can run basically any game on Linux. They've done a huge amount of work into making sure you can actually run games on Linux, which I am very happy with.
I take it you've got a spare bank account just to buy this Steam Deck.
Oh, I wish, but I can't buy it here because Valve won't let me. That's what I was going to call this. Shut up and take my money, Valve. Or why Valve won't let me buy their products in Australia. And then they went and blew it with the Index. Not that I'm complaining. I've wanted to get an Index for ages, but apart from it being really expensive, it's going to be nearly $2,000 in Australia.
Oh man.
You just haven't been able to buy it here. You've had to import it.
Although, mind you, there was a recent Kotaku article about how you can pre-order a Steam Deck in Australia.
You can, but it involves a bunch of jumping through hoops. You need an American bank account, an American phone number, all sorts of stuff. And then when you get it in Australia, there's no guarantee that you'll still be able to use it without buying all your games from an American account.
Oh.
Basically, currently they have it region locked so that only people in the US and Europe and a few other places can buy the Steam Deck. So I have a theory that even if you did manage to get one in Australia, you'd still have to have your account set up as an American account. And the way they're combating scalpers actually makes a lot of sense. Your account needs to have bought a game before the Steam Deck was announced. So back in June, the Steam Deck was announced in July. You have to have owned a game since before June.
Okay.
and then it's only one per customer. I don't think it's worth the hassle to get it, though, because I think one of the big issues with going and grey importing a product like this is that you don't have the same warranty protections that you would if you bought it legitimately in Australia.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a bit iffy about buying stuff like that and reshipping and all of that. Because with a product that expensive, if something goes wrong, and it probably will for a first generation product, even the Valve Index had a few warranty issues. I want to be able to get the warranty because I don't have a spare, $1,000 to buy another one and then wait 3 weeks or however long it takes for the reshipping.
So with the Steam Deck, so what have you learned from besides the fact that besides all the stuff that you just said, what are the other stuff that you've learned from the?
Okay, so they've put a lot of effort into making it run stuff well. There's going to be different graphics modes you can select because it is basically just running the PC version of the software. But it seems to have most of the features of the Steam controller. It's got rear buttons for your, like on the back of the console. It's got 2 sticks. It's got touchpads on either side, which you can map. Everything's remappable. I think there's gyro control, which I'm not sure how well that'll go with the Steam Deck, because the deck is pretty heavy and you can't detach the controllers. I think that's probably, well, maybe a patent issue because Valve does that with the Switch. I actually don't really know there, just speculation. But I feel like if you're holding something like the Steam Deck, which weighs, I don't remember if I've actually seen a weight for it, but they
From
did
what
comment that it is heavier than a Switch.
I found it on I found a Wikipedia page for it. They're saying here the weight is 669 grams, so which is what for our American listeners, 1.475 pounds.
Okay, not too bad then. Compared to the Switch, it is heavier. The Switch itself is something like 400 grams.
The question would be, would you be able to fit this in a pocket?
No, it's bigger than the Switch. Like, you can kind of fit the Switch. So on the back of the deck, there's grips for the controllers. So the Switch itself is basically flat except for the bumpers and
The Joy-Cons, yeah.
Joy-Con, the sticks.
Yeah.
So the Switch, okay, here we go. So the Switch with the Joy-Cons comes in at just under 400 grams, but the deck is so big that you can fit a Switch with Joy-Cons attached into the gap between the grips on the back of the deck.
Okay.
So it only runs at 720p or 800p, might be what they're targeting. I think we can't exactly say for the specs yet. They're probably going to continue to nail that down in the next few months.
Yeah.
I think the pre-orders aren't expecting to ship until next year.
Okay.
But I've lost that train of thought.
I gotta admit though, aesthetically, when I look at the Steam Deck, it looks a bit like a PSP.
Really? I
Yeah.
would have said it looks more like a Switch, but black.
Yeah, but look, when you look at the PSP, right? Hang on a second.
I'm pretty hyped for it, though, even aside from the hardware. I'm pretty hyped for it because it means Valve is taking Linux compatibility extremely seriously. So it's basically a Linux-based console. Well, it's a
Yeah.
full computer designed as a console. So if you wanted, you can drop out of the custom Steam interface. They don't have a name for it yet, but it is a Steam interface designed for the deck.
From what I've seen, someone made a name. It was already named. Give me a second. Steam Link.
Steam Link's a different thing.
Okay.
A Steam Link is a little streaming box that you plug into your TV, and it lets you play games from your PC on the TV.
Okay. They said Steam OS. That's
Yeah,
the operating
so
system.
it does seem to be a continuation of SteamOS,
Hmm.
which itself was a project for the Steam Machine, which was a uh, sort of low power, small form factor PC for streaming from your personal computer to the TV, or also you could run lightweight games on it. But I do think that they're also partnering with AMD. It's using a custom AMD APU, which isn't available separately. Um, so I think we're going to see some really good driver support here.
Oh yeah.
And that's what I love about Steam Proton. It makes supporting Linux a almost a non-issue for the developer. Proton, so a bit of history. Proton is sort of a more modern version of Wine, which was a piece of software for Linux that let you run Windows software under Linux. Traditionally, or infamously buggy, doesn't necessarily play nice with games. So they decided Proton would be designed specifically to play nice with games, and we're getting to the point now, and it is absolutely amazing. I never thought this would happen a few years ago, but we're getting to the point now that DRM companies are starting to support Proton,
Hmm.
which has been one of the big roadblocks in Linux gaming. The DRM means that you can't play competitive multiplayer games on Linux. I've wanted to switch to Linux for a while. Not a big fan of where Windows is going. I want to. I also like having more control over my computer, and Linux has a lot of things going for it that I like, basically. But I haven't been comfortable putting it on my main PC because I'm a heavy gamer.
That's fair. That's fair.
But
I mean,
Proton has gotten to the point that I'm starting to feel comfortable with the idea of maybe dual booting to begin with and just see how it goes for a bit before I take the full leap. I've been considering that for a little bit now. I should probably just do it and get it over with. So between Proton and the custom AMD chip, it seems like they're getting really serious about support for Linux.
hmm,
Traditionally, AMD's been better than NVIDIA for Linux support because AMD opens up their drivers so Linux people can tinker on them and fix any issues that come up. NVIDIA's always had closed drivers.
okay. Curiously though, so with all the info that's been laid bare, will this blow the games development market in a big way?
I think for game developers, it's just another PC. That's what's incredible about Proton. You're not making a separate version, you're not compiling to a separate console. You're just compiling for Linux or just compile for Windows and let Proton handle it. I think, so pure speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised if Proton gets enough people onto Linux that more developers start taking Linux support seriously. In the past, I don't remember the name of the game, but I do remember that one game that had Linux support posted, the developers posted Linux accounts for like 2.5% of their users, but accounts for 20%. I'm probably off on the numbers, but 20% of support requests. So they considered it not worth the effort to support Linux. Understandably, because you're just not making the money out of the Linux users to pay your team to support them, unfortunately. So here's my wild guess. Proton and Steam Deck will get enough people playing on Linux for developers to see that and think, let's make a native Linux version. The native Linux version will increase the market share of Linux. And eventually, the Linux will become the predominant operating system, and developers will all support Linux by default.
So basically, you're gonna make Bill Gates cry.
Probably not, because Bill Gates already has his billions. But Steve Ballmer, is he still there? No, I
uh,
don't think he is. It's who is it now?
Oh, it's an Indian guy.
Satya Nadella, I think.
Yeah. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll make Nadella cry.
Yeah, Satya
But
Nadella.
also, Nadella, I think, from what I know, is partly behind the push for better Linux on Windows support with stuff like Windows Subsystem for Linux.
The other question I would wonder with the Steam Deck is, are we going to see more? Will there be like you said about the whole Linux and Windows battle? So let's say, for example, you've got a bit of a Windows users. Will they be left behind in terms of performance issues?
Eventually, maybe. I'm not convinced that will be a significant factor for a very long time, though. I think what we'll see first is better support for Linux via Proton,
Mm.
then better support for Linux via native compilation from engines. So for Unity, I think Unity already supports Linux. It definitely supports Android, which is sort of a cousin of Linux. Then for people to start supporting Linux natively, and so on and so forth, until Linux is a major has major market share.
Okay.
And from what we've seen so far, the deck has surprisingly good performance. I'm pretty excited for this.
I know you would be pretty excited for this. I
Yeah,
knew it.
hardware wise, it's exciting. It's pushing the limits of what we can do with portable hardware.
Do you reckon this is the well, should I call it revolution or evolution of small computing, like when we had the PC, then it was the laptop, then it's the
Yeah. So phones have been pushing it for a bit, but the problem with phones is that they have an awful interface for gaming.
yeah.
Um, Small screens, touch is not great for anything other than strategy, and even then, you're limited by the size of the screen. You'll notice people who take phone gaming seriously, and I think that's a much bigger thing in Asia than it is in the West.
Oh yeah. Especially with Pokemon Go and how it's a big thing over there.
Well, I'm not thinking of Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go is like built from the ground up to be a touchscreen game,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking PUBG Mobile, COD Mobile, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I've played shooters on my. Actually, I did play quite a few shooters on my iPod Touch back in high school, uh, but that was because I didn't have access to a gaming computer. I didn't even have my own personal laptop at the time. That wasn't, until later that I had my own computer that only I used, so I could always guarantee that I could actually use it. Uh, it gets a bit tricky when you're having to fight with your family for computer time.
Yeah.
But the so I did play some shooters on my iPod Touch, and they weren't great. The interface was pretty shit. I think the people who take that sort of stuff seriously tend to have a controller that goes with their phone.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me. I did remember playing games on the iPod Touch as well. What was one of my favorite games I used to play was the Simpsons Hit and Run game. And man,
Oh, that came out on iPod as well.
yeah, that came on an iPod as well. And yeah, you're right.
Did you ever finish it?
Did I ever finish it?
Yeah.
No, I didn't,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Nerdcube did a playthrough of that years ago. It ended up killing his PlayStation 2.
No.
So he ended up getting another PlayStation 2. But that final level, did you ever get to the final level?
Oh no, actually, I gotta correct myself on this one. It wasn't a hit and run. It was The Simpsons Tapped Out. That's
Oh,
the game.
right. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
bit more like Farmville, though, isn't it?
yeah. It does have the Farmville aspect to it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, well, just wrapping up the hit and run discussion.
yeah.
So first it killed his PlayStation, and then he got to the final level, which is an awful level. The frame rate drops horribly in it. the console just can't keep up because in the final level they added all of these like graphical effects because it's a Halloween level, so there's like ghosts and transparency and stuff. The console did not like it. It nearly killed him because the goal is to take your car and move explosive barrels to the alien spaceship where they get picked up by tractor beam. And he got like within seconds of finishing it a few times. Like he's literally in the tractor beam, and then time runs out and he loses the mission. So it just about killed him.
Damn,
And then he came back for a Halloween special where he went to face it again. Still couldn't do it.
Yeah, it makes it sound like one of the. It makes the game Dark Souls look like a children's game.
Hey, at least in Dark Souls, if you die, it's because you stuffed up.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about the Steam Deck, and I think it'll be an interesting emulation machine. Now, emulation's a gray area. It should be, don't pirate games that are still around. My own personal sort of moral code with it is abandonware only.
Yeah.
But I think it would make an interesting emulation machine. You could load retro games onto it, emulate early consoles, maybe.
It'd be a good emulation machine, but the problem would be is the region lock as well.
No, because you can drop straight into a regular Linux OS.
Oh yeah.
So presumably it's going to run a version of SteamOS, a new version. I don't know if they'll still call it SteamOS. Maybe they'll call it DeckOS or something. But since they haven't supported SteamOS for a couple of years, so yeah, I think it'll support basically anything you throw at it. You're not going to be running at the highest graphical settings, but it's a handheld. What can you ask for? But we've been you got me talking a lot there, DJ.
You're passionate about this game. I gotta admit.
Well, I love Valve hardware. The only Valve hardware I've actually got experience firsthand with is the Steam controller, and I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do next.
I agree. So moving from loving Steam, we're gonna be loving this new one. Amazon has revealed the new Lord of the Rings series and some interesting announcements in relation to it, such as the premiere date, which is September the 2nd, 2022, as filming has completed for the first season of the show on August the 2nd in New Zealand, and they've showed the official first image of it. Looks beautiful.
Okay.
So they've said that they're not going to release any details about the whole series, but this will take place in the Second Age, thousands of years prior to the events to both the Lord of the Rings books and The Hobbit, and it will follow an ensemble cast of characters both familiar and new as they confront the long-feared re-emergence of evil to Middle-earth. Oh man. I mean, mind you, from what I've heard, that they're doing the source material they're using is the Silmarillion.
Yeah, the Silmarillion, kind of the Bible, but Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Well, Amazon's gonna make another monopoly over it, and
well,
yeah,
Amazon currently owns the rights to make Lord of the Rings TV shows.
Yeah.
I mean, my understanding is that Tolkien Estate has been a bit hesitant about Third Age stuff because The Hobbit was a bit of a flop, and the Lord of the Rings also changed a decent amount of stuff, so they're a bit iffy about it. But this is Second Age, so it works around that.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, with the Lord of the Rings, with the Amazon Lord of the Rings, do we want to know about the fall of Numenor? Do we want to know how Sauron came to be? Do we really want to know the backstory? Yeah, I mean, it's already we already know Sauron is evil. We really need to know the backstory of him though.
I think Lord of the Rings, yes, because Lord of the Rings isn't. It's not like they're just making it up to have more content, but it's more that Tolkien originally wrote so much content for Lord of the Rings, so many notes, so much content. It's all. It wasn't all released while he was alive. A lot of it's been put together by his son Christopher.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, if I recall, like they were just like a collection of interconnected stories, legends, and poems
Well,
over the
yeah,
yeah,
it
and
kind of developed over time.
yeah, and it was like it's a less structured narrative, and it's more yeah, and it's like you said,
Some
it's
of it
more
is, some of it is actually a proper structured narrative.
yeah,
But that's how Bible stories go too. Like I compared it to the Bible, but Lord of the Rings. Um, it even the Bible does that. Some of the bits are just like short descriptions of events. Some of it's really quite detailed stories. Some
yeah,
historical stuff, some legends. But you could. There's so much history revealed in Tolkien's notes. You can kind of be a Lord of the Rings historian.
yeah. Like
So I think there's plenty of content for them to work with.
yeah, but here's the thing with with the original Lord of the Rings, why it's so good. Like with the Peter Jackson edition, like the acting, besides the acting and directing, fundamentally the
Oh
trilogy
yeah,
six.
do you know that Aragorn kicked the helmet and broke his toe?
I remember that one. That was funny as hell. Like
Literally every time.
but yeah, besides the acting and directing, like fundamentally the trilogy succeeded because it remained faithful to the source material. Like Jackson and his colleagues were smart enough to realize that the Tolkien had already written a perfect story for
Yeah,
them, and
they
all
made changes.
yeah, oh yeah,
The changes worked for the format.
yeah, true, true. But then all they needed to do was find a way to condense it to 9 hours of screen time, or 11 hours if you.
Excuse me, extended editions, please.
Yeah, no, like I was gonna say, 11 hours if you're one of those mad lads that want to go for the extended cut. But yeah,
We're not mad lads. We just appreciate art.
I agree with you there. But overall, yeah, they did a nice job, and all they had, and they had all the source material they could ask for, and their real concern was what stuff to leave out, like there may be some personal taste and stuff, but yeah,
Bring
but
back Bombadil.
yeah, oh, that would have been great.
Oh, Tum Bombadil, oh.
But yeah, but then you're right about the Hobbit though, how it went a bit off the rails, like
Uh,
because
so let me tell you the issue with The Hobbit. The
oh no,
Hobbit itself. Uh, what is the word count of The Hobbit?
like 300 pages or something.
It's like a third the length of a single Lord of the Rings book, and they extended it to the same amount of content as the Lord of the Rings.
But yeah, but with the Hobbit though, like it was originally 300 pages,
Okay,
and
yeah. So here's the thing: The Hobbit, 95,000 words. The Fellowship, 187,000 words.
damn.
So there's significantly more detail in Fellowship than there is in The Hobbit.
Yeah, in
And The Hobbit, I think The Hobbit, they tried to introduce all this stuff, but I don't think they had the time or the effort to make it work. And that's partly because of the studio meddling.
yeah, and
Like
it
it
was
was
also
originally Guillermo del Toro, and then they brought in Peter Jackson like last minute,
yeah,
and he kind of just glued together what he had to meet the contract.
yeah, and it was also to pad out the story as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think if they'd made one film, average length film, they could have told most of the story of The Hobbit, dropped a bit of the extra stuff, but got in most of it, and just called it a day, and people would have loved that.
yeah, and that made the whole Hobbit trilogy look over the top and somewhat unnecessary. Uh,
Yeah,
but yeah, back
so
to with the Amazon ones, like it was like even though it's like there is some narrative to it, there's no dialogue or character development or any particular plot to speak of. Like, and here's the funny thing, right? If
do
you
you
want to
know that yet? Have you seen the Amazon show?
no, but
So
it's
how do you know that there's no plot, there's no character development?
It's the Silmarillion they're basing
Yeah,
it out of, though.
no, yeah, you're completely missing the thing. There's tons of plot and characters in the Silmarillion.
Yeah, there is, but what? Okay, like there is no overarching plot, is there? Like
No,
the
there isn't, but there are sections. Like, I'm gonna keep comparing it to the Bible because they are quite similar in terms of structure. But in the Bible, there's no overarching arc apart from, the story of humanity from the view of a Christian. Uh, well, first Jews and then Christians. Um, unless you want to go with the Quran, and then you get first the Jews, then the Muslims.
yeah.
But you get my point that it's the history as written down by Christians in this case. And so you're covering how long do they reckon it is? Like the really hardcore
But
Christians
depends
think
on which.
that the earth is 6,000 years old.
Yeah, but depends on which. Like, are you gonna go with the from Genesis to Revelations from top to bottom, or are you gonna
You
do
don't
like?
have to.
Hmm.
Uh you you can make just Jesus movie. You
Yeah.
can make just Revelations movie.
Oh
You
yeah.
don't need to just go A to B, A to Z.
Yeah.
You can pick and choose because there is no overarching plot. Something like the Silmarillion has a lot of backstory for how the Middle Earth ended up the way it is now in the Third Age, which is what most people are familiar with because that's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. And here's the
But
thing that.
it's
But
like, so compare it, think of it more like you've got a movie about Jesus, say, Passion of the Christ, maybe? No, wait, that's just his death, really. But
yeah. Yeah.
okay, I can't think of any examples of Jesus movies that cover his whole life. But then you've
Uh.
also got Gods of Egypt, which is about.
Oh, you mean the Prince of Egypt?
No, I'm thinking of that one that. Did Ridley Scott direct it? It was sort of a
No.
sequel to Noah or a
No, it
prequel.
was no. Gods of Egypt was a totally different movie.
Okay,
Noah
well,
was Ridley
yeah.
Scott though.
So then you've got the Noah movie, which
Hmm.
is completely unrelated. Same universe, unrelated. Then you've got Gods of Egypt. Uh, is Gods of Egypt even a Bible movie, or am I confusing myself?
The one that if I'm thinking, hang on a second, the Gods of Egypt is like is like a superhero movie, but I think you got the wrong title. Give me a sec. Prince of Egypt.
Okay, I'm pretty sure there's a movie about that period of the Bible.
Here we go.
So
I found it. It's Exodus, Gods and Kings.
that's it. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, so that's an Exodus story.
Yeah,
So Moses.
yeah.
So they've got three separate stories, same universe, all with their own characters and development and plot arcs, and they all come together. Like they all come together to tell the story of how the universe got to where it is, but they're not intertwined, which is what the Silmarillion is basically. There are elements that appear again and again, like the Silmarils themselves, which turn up even all the way through to the Third Age. So
But here's the thing, right? Like, okay, it's instead of comparing it to the Bible, let's compare it to like a modern example, right? Let's compare it to Game of Thrones, for example, and how they've basically some of the stuff in the series of copy and pasted kind of thing to
well,
make it.
they Game of Thrones doesn't have the background that Lord of the Rings does. George R. R. Martin is trying to fill it out now, but we don't have access to the same sort of background. There's no Silmarillion of Westeros.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you gotta
He
admit though,
is working on he's doing historical books. He's taking every excuse he can to not finish the Game of Thrones plotline.
yeah, he makes it. He makes your average glacier look like an F1 car by comparison. I
Yeah,
mean,
so he's taking every excuse he can to not work on that. And one of his recent projects in the last couple of years was a historical sort of Westeros story
yeah, I
set
think.
hundreds of years before Game of Thrones.
Yeah, the House of the Dragon. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the story of the Targaryen civil war.
Yeah, so he's coming up with stories like that, but I don't think there's enough content in the history of Game of Thrones to fill out a Silmarillion.
Yeah. But on the subject of the Game of Thrones though, so Je- so Jeff Bezos, the overlord of Amazon and future ruler of Earth, well, even though that might be disputed with Elon Musk doing it, he recently came out saying that he wants Lord of the Rings, his Lord of the Rings series to be the next Game of Thrones, and I'm thinking, okay,
Well, of course he does.
yeah, well, but here's the thing though. Like, considering the lack of imagination and creativity we have experienced in the last few weeks, I don't think he's referring to the success and recognition of the show he wants. I don't think. I think he wants to emulate the dark, gritty, mature tone of the
Well,
series.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and poured it into Lord of the Rings. And the
There
funny
are
thing is,
Lord of the Rings stories that are quite dark,
oh yeah, yeah, there
but
are.
I don't know that they quite match up with um Game of Thrones dark.
Yeah,
Because
and
there's hope is a pretty strong theme of the third age stories.
yeah, yeah, and
I
the fun.
admit that I haven't read many second age stories. I
Yeah.
just know from reading articles about the history of uh, Middle Earth.
Mm. And the funny thing is, like now that you mention it, the funny part about it is how they've for the Amazon series they've hired intimacy coaches to help out the sex scenes. Okay, but me personally, I find it hilarious because these are grown ass adults and they're professional actors, so they know how to, so they already
You're
know how
thinking
to.
of it the wrong way.
Yeah,
It's not
no.
like having someone on set who's like, okay, now hug tighter or whatever. It's someone on set who's making sure that everyone's comfortable, that everybody feels safe, and it's not about like what's going to go into film. It's about protecting the people who are making the scene.
Yeah. But the point of it, though, is that they wanted the sex and nudity in the show, partly because it will allow them to work sexual politics into the narrative and giving them a strong female character as a convenient mechanism to attain power and leverage. Because Game of Thrones had sex and nudity, and Game of
No,
Thrones was
I think you're
popular.
wrong.
Oh, really?
I
I
think they're
know.
just going to shove it in there because the phrasing. I think they're just putting sex and nudity in because they think it's popular at the
Yeah.
moment.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
And
think they need it to force a strong female character because there are plenty of strong female characters in Lord of the Rings anyway.
yeah, that's true. That's
I
true.
mean,
And
you
you're right. You're right about the whole. They
I
want to
can't
make it.
even count them on one hand.
Yeah, but you are right about how they want to make Game of Thrones popular, and Jeff wants to make his show wants his show to be popular. So why not just copy other popular things and hope it works out?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think the I think there's plenty of content that you can make a Lord of the Rings prequel story about. I just think you have to do it right.
yeah,
And we'll see how they do it. They are I am a bit skeptical that it will be good since they're shoving in all of the sex and nudity.
yeah.
I'm hoping that's just a sign that it well, I'm hoping that's just to follow the trends and that they have the skill to pull off something like the movies of Lord of the Rings again.
See, my skepticism about the series is how they're going to make how how they're going to like what type of narrative they're going to put in. Like, so for example, like Tolkien's work was always the higher, grander ideals of than what it was.
Yeah.
So it's about
Tolkien wanted to create a mythical what am I looking for? Well, a mythos for the West. He kind of thought that at least in English there was no over. So this is kind of getting into outside factors, but
yeah.
he was really into language.
Mm.
Part of the reason why he wrote Lord of the Rings was because he developed these languages and wanted a story to tell about the people who use those languages. Like the languages in Lord of the Rings are mostly proper languages with defined grammar. The But he was also aiming to create a mythos for English speakers. So the Nordics have stories like Beowulf, but he didn't think that there was anything like that in English.
Yeah.
In fact, Beowulf was one of the first things that he wrote, I believe. Let me just Google that to double check.
Yeah, and I get where he's coming from, but like I suspect that like Tolkien's old-fashioned wholesome idealistic views on good versus evil, it doesn't factor in particularly well with what we're seeing in modern media.
Well,
And
there are also shades of grey in Lord of the Rings.
yeah, true, true. But here's the thing, like where it with the modern media, it's going to be where nothing is wrong, nobody's good or evil, or nothing, and nothing we do means anything. Like his particular brand of storytelling, Tolkien's, mind you, is the polar opposite we're churning out today. I mean, God forbid, God forbid, people might come out of the movie or TV series feeling inspired and emotionally satisfied. I mean, if this trend
Yeah.
follows,
So you think that they're going to take Lord of the Rings and just make it all grey morality?
Oh, I reckon that, and plus, I reckon what they'll do is they'll paint Sauron as some misunderstood hero.
I hope not, because it's very clear that Sauron isn't misunderstood at all. Sauron is a corruption of what is good. So the Silmarillion, coming back to that, so the first part of the Silmarillion is basically Genesis. It's the creation of Middle Earth, and it describes how Middle Earth was created by I can't remember his name now. Eru. Yeah. So Eru, the creator of Middle Earth, the first part is of the first part of the Silmarillion is about Eru creating the name isn't Middle Earth at that point, but creating the universe, creating the people who live in it. He creates it also kind of mirrors biblical Genesis, because he creates the Aenir, who are his sort of assistants. So Eru, like the overarching idea is that existence is sort of music, and Eru created the Aenir, who he said, come and make music with me. And Melkor, who was one of the Aenir, was like, nah, screw you, mate, I'm going to go bugger off and do my own thing. And started singing his own song. And so actually, I'm just going to pull it up to refresh my memory.
That's fair.
I had it up a minute ago.
So
yeah, he creates the universe, creates the Aenir. Melkor leads rebellions against him. Remind you of anyone?
Satan.
Like Satan, yeah. Melkor is basically Satan. So Tolkien was probably inspired by the Bible a bit.
Yeah.
Melkor rebels and creates, corrupts the song. He convinces some of the Aenir to join him and help create bad things. And some of the bad things include Sauron and Borogs and
the orcs.
Orcs and trolls and ents. Well, not ents, sorry, orcs and trolls. And it says if I'm remembering correctly, it says in the Silmarillion that orcs and trolls are corruptions of existing creatures that Eru created. Eru and the good Aenir. So that sort of kicks the whole thing into gear. It's the classic Satan the betrayer story.
Yeah, it's but these stories, for example, like these stories, as you said, they're idealistic, they're wholesome, they're okay. Granted, they've been played out years and years after. Yeah, but then can you imagine like these stories just being twisted into, oh, Sauron was initially a good guy.
Well,
he was a good.
There are characters you can do that to without ruining it. So even in the Third Age, Saruman himself was a bit grey.
Yeah.
Saruman created the Uruk-hai, if I remember correctly. But Saruman was also, working with Sauron, but not to rule Middle-earth as Sauron's servant. He himself planned to overthrow Sauron. Does that make him a good guy or a bad guy?
Okay, actions-wise, I would say he's a bad guy. Like him trying to attack Isengard and...
Yeah, and destroying the Shire.
Yeah.
In the books, not the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have made the movie so much longer, but I am a bit sad we didn't get to see that.
Yeah.
Basically, in the books, while the Fellowship were away, Saruman and his group, it was called the Scouring of the Shire, and some people take that as a bit of a metaphor for World War One. There's an argument that Lord of the Rings is a metaphor for World War One. The happy, optimistic young men, Frodo and Sam, go out, go to battle, see horrible things, and they finally succeed and come back, and everything's been industrialized. The world that they left doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But okay, I think I'm gonna have to tell you to move it along there, DJ, because
But
this is a variety
be...
show, not a Lord of the Rings show. For that, you can check out who is it? We have one of those at TNC, don't we?
Yep, we do. We do. I'll whip it up while we look at the science topic, which is about Minecraft and how it's helping kids dealing with autism.
Okay, here it is. Mordor She Wrote. I love that name.
I know. Sure.
So, what does Minecraft have to do with autism, apart from it being a stereotype that autistic kids like Minecraft?
They're saying that video games online can be antisocial, but the Autocraft community is helping kids with autism learn social skills and build relationships.
Autocraft, not Autocraft.
Oh, right. Autocraft. Sorry. So, like many constructions, it started small, but now thousands of children with autism are making friends and learning social skills by playing a version of online building game Minecraft.
Okay.
So Stuart Duncan got the idea through a popular blog he ran about his own experiences with autism, as well as bringing up a son with autism. And other parents with autistic children started telling him that their kids were crazy about a game that would let them explore a randomly generated wilderness. However, despite loving the game, many of the children were being bullied by other players. Is it that toxic?
I don't think they're talking about Minecraft specifically, but some games are pretty toxic.
Yeah. So 3 years later, he ran Autocraft as a full-time job, and the community boasts nearly 7,000 members, along with a team of admins to help manage its activities. And one of the quotes, one of the creators said, "Minecraft strips away the pressures and distractions of the real world. You can really be yourself."
So he's running a Minecraft group specifically for autistic, for autistic children and their families. It looks like.
Yeah.
I like this. I think it's an interesting concept. So they also point out that Kate Ringland from the University of California has been doing work in Autocraft to help autistic children learn social skills. And I think that's pretty cool. I remember, so I've got Asperger's. At least that's what I was diagnosed as. These days I would have been diagnosed with autism, because Asperger's was a subset of autism, and then they decided to just make it all autism of different degrees. But I remember when I was young going to events and sort of social clubs for autistic people. Basically what they're suggesting. And I think that was actually pretty helpful for me to be able to learn social skills and make friends in a more controlled way, where it's harder to get overwhelmed, which is what they seem to be aiming for by creating Autocraft.
To join this Autocraft, you must fill out an application, and once you're approved, you are free to roam the landscape and build your own structures. You can also take part in group games like massive battles against Withers, a kind of ghostly villain, or build things as a team. But you have to stick to some rules. Harassing other players or destroying their property can get you banned. A spin-off server for teenagers is more permissive.
So, kind of, that's quite similar to the rules I've seen on a lot of public Minecraft servers. Like, just don't be a jerk, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that they're using Minecraft specifically, though, to help teach social skills. Um, yeah, I think the power of multiplayer gaming is that it does help create a space where you can sort of be yourself without the same pressure that you have in the real world.
Yeah. But then the problem is though, like some people are saying that this Oldcraft, while it is good, is a good first step, it shouldn't be the only outlet.
That's probably true. Um, you can't emulate every scenario in Minecraft, but the same is true for the. I'm trying to remember if there was a name for them. I think one of the programs I did was called Friends for Life, maybe? I don't remember exactly, but I don't think that's a perfect representation of a social environment either.
Mhm.
But it's all part of training and learning. So it sounds like they just found someone who was saying, it's not perfect, just so they could have a dissenting opinion in the article.
Yeah,
But it
that sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think aside from it obviously not being a perfect system and not everyone being suited for this, not every scenario being suited for this, I think it's great to see people using games for helping people like this. It's I think 10 years ago, even maybe a bit longer, you probably would have had a hard time convincing people to take this seriously. So this is sort of showing how the world's changing, but it is allowing uh, new new ways of doing things that we've done in the past.
I mean, it's good to see those types of games, but then there aren't many games that are used to raise awareness, is there?
No, actually, pretty good example of that would be our friend Devi Boy.
Yeah,
His game, An Aspie Life,
yeah.
which is inspired by his own experience being an Aspie. Um,
But then besides that, like besides that game, like we haven't heard any other game that has raised awareness for people suffering from autism and whatnot.
uh, no, it's not one that I've heard a lot about, and I think it's one that's difficult because autism's a very psychological uh, disorder, whereas you can do. It's not like a physical disorder where you can create a. Um, uh, well, I think psychology is one of the harder things to represent in media, whereas deafness or blindness. Being a physical thing is much easier to represent.
Just curiously, as a game developer, could you see more of these in the near future?
I think this one in particular is a bit of lightning in a bottle. It's specifically for a game like Minecraft. Not a lot of games have the same sort of uh,
Community?
yeah. And you couldn't do this in say COD. How would you role play social situations and making friends in COD? The only thing you can do in COD is kill.
Yeah.
You can't in Minecraft you can role play a whole bunch of things. You can run a store, you can build stuff. I think it's it's not just that, it's also building the community. You can build a community in any game, but it's not necessarily going to be an autistic focused community that does good work like this one. I mean, lots of people could create a community and say this is an autistic focused community and have no idea what they're doing and just
Well, they could always say like this is a safe space, and that's it,
yeah,
get
but
and
that's
that
also fairly limited about just saying this is a place for people with autism is going to be less productive than what it seems like Ortcraft is doing, which is this is a place for people with autism and also a sort of social network for autistic people. If that makes any sense. But we are running out of time, DJ, so how about we move it along to the shout-outs?
That's fair. That's fair. So on to our shoutouts on the 1st of August.
Ad break first, DJ.
So we'll take a short break and to come back with the shoutouts, remembrances, famous birthdays, and events of interest.
Jeez, it's like we take a few weeks off and you forget how to do everything.
So on to our shoutouts on the 1st of August. Thea White, who the voice of Muriel from Courage the Cowardly Dog, passed away at 81. The original show aired from 1999 to 2002, but Muriel returned to the role for an upcoming crossover movie with Scooby-Doo called Straight Outta Nowhere. The film is due to release in September. Thea died of post-surgery infection after having liver cancer removed. That was a good show too.
Yeah, it's a particularly tragic one as well, that she had the surgery, which seems to have been successful, and then died as a result of the surgery.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great that she was still coming back for the character, 20 years later.
Yeah. I might watch it just out of respect for her. And on the 2nd of August, we passed the 30th anniversary of Streets of Rage. The original release of Streets of Rage in 1991 spawned a line of sequels. The lead designer Noriyoshi Oba was inspired by existing fighting games and Western action television like Starsky and Hutch and The A-Team. It featured a focus on cooperative play, letting players perform special moves by working together. And there were so many other cool mechanics for that game as well.
I've actually only ever played it single player. I on the Nintendo Switch emulator thingy that you get for having Switch Online.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of it now, but yeah, I've only ever played it a bit there. I had no idea it had so much like co-op stuff in it. I might have to give it another go with a friend. I'll have to find a friend.
Hey, you got me. You got me.
I said I need to find a friend.
So, subsequently, on the 3rd of August, the Beauval Zoo announced that two giant panda twins have been born. Giant pandas have difficulty reproducing in captivity, and it seems they also have issues in the wild. Because of this, once veterinarians confined the pandas were mating successfully, they decided to conduct an artificial insemination. China has traditionally gifted and loaned pandas to foreign zoos as a form of diplomacy, and retained ownership of the cubs. They will not be named until they are 100 days old.
Yeah, it's pandas are like really bad at reproduction.
Oh yeah, they're temperamental.
Yeah, like they only have, if I remember correctly, it's like a few hours every month or couple of months that they're actually, fertile. And they're also really bad at the actual act of reproduction. They're not that interested in it, it turns out. Pandas just don't care about it, and when they do, they're bad at it.
Oh, can you imagine? So I can imagine this. Some scientists trying to mirror the behavior of pandas to the behavior of humans in the the dating cycle. It's go like, Al, let's have sex, and be like, no, piggy. Can you imagine?
Well, there was a zoo that showed panda porn to try to get them in the mood.
What? No way. That has to be a myth. That has to be a myth.
No, it's not.
Oh no, you found it.
Yeah, there's a lot of research into helping pandas be more productive.
Oh god.
Yeah, because they just don't care. Pandas are like, the only reason pandas still exist is because people care enough about them because they're cute.
No.
They're basically carnivores living on a vegetarian diet that they're not particularly good at. But you get the point. They're not particularly good at it. But luckily,
like
this
how
one seems to be doing a good job of raising its children.
Yep, I like how you're struggling to describe it, but it's hard.
Yeah, I said my head's a bit funny tonight because
Yep. That's fair. That's fair.
reasons.
All right, and finally on our shoutouts, we celebrate the 30th anniversary of Sir Tim Berners-Lee's first webpage on the 6th. Hosted at info.cern.ch, it detailed the World Wide Web project his team was working on. This page still exists and is available in almost the same form as it was when first created.
Yeah, which is pretty incredible. How much other tech that's 30 years old is still easy to access.
Hmm.
But as far as I can tell, the uh, first web page actually runs essentially the same. You can even go in and look at the code that they used to make it, which is pretty cool.
So, although the internet existed before this, the team at CERN created the first examples of the first not the first modern web of the modern web. Tim rejected patents for web servers and browsers, helping attract more users. There are now more than 1.8 billion websites. In 2019, Tim released a book of rights and obligations for the internet, hoping to counteract the growth of misinformation, surveillance, and censorship. He said, "This new world in which so much of our society is already determined by how social networks work and so on is new, and there's no rule book written 100 years ago. So this is, in a way, the first time we have a rule book in which responsibility is being shared." Yeah, as if Twitter and big tech and Facebook are gonna listen to that.
Yeah,
Although it's kind of funny how he's released a book in a hope of counteracting the growth of misinformation. Remind me of Obama, I think a couple of months ago, saying that the internet is the enemy of humanity or something
it's
like that.
honestly, for all the good the internet has done, it's also done a lot of harm.
Yeah. Here we go. Here we go. So Obama actually said this: the internet is the single biggest threat to our democracy. I'm
Yeah,
like, uh, way to go to say like the free flow of information should not be a thing.
I don't think it's necessarily that. I think the issue is like it's not that the free flow of information is bad; it's that people are using it to do bad things by
Yeah.
spreading false information,
Hmm.
lies, basically.
Yeah. But then, but then that
Like, look
depends
at
on the.
all the lies that have come out about COVID and vaccines.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, the internet has done absolutely incredible things for so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's let people get access to healthcare that is outside their local community. Instead of having to fly all the way around the world, you can do a Skype call with someone on the other side of the world and get advice on your medical condition.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. That
So,
it relies on the how strong the internet connection is, though. Like,
yeah,
look at
but
our
other,
country's lovely internet.
well, yeah, it's a lot better than it used to be. Still has issues,
Yep.
but the other issue is that sorry, I've just noticed a typo in Tim Berners-Lee's first web pages. There's a typo.
Uh oh. What did you do?
It wasn't me. It's his website. I'm going to put the link into the show notes there under the section by mail on the page info.cern.ch/hypertext/www/faq/no internet. Under the section by mail. No, sorry. Well, yes, under by mail. Help, it's not a headline. Your mail system must have a mail gateway onto internet mail, but hat is quite likely. Oh, Tim. It's even got his signature on it. He's signing the page. Link to the Tim Berners-Lee disclaimer. This
Oh.
information is provided in good faith, but no warranty can be made for its accuracy. It's got his email address at CERN and his telephone number. I wonder if you called that, if you'd still get him.
Oh, that would be funny.
If you
But
notice anything incorrect or have any comment, feel free to mail me. Dear Tim.
uh, so while the professor is typing up a big obscene email, we go to our remembrances. So Emil Berliner, inventor of the lateral cut flat disc record, aka gramophone record, passed away on the 3rd of August 1929. He founded a number of gramophone companies around the world to produce gramophones and records, including the Victor Talking Machine Company in 1901, which is a great name. Berliner's record greatly improved on previous phonographs, which used cylindrical records, which was very fragile. His design improved the strength, recording time, and allowing for an easier production. He also invented a type of loom, an acoustic tile, and an early helicopter along with James J. Newton Williams. This helicopter flew 3 times. He died of a heart attack at 78 in Washington, D.C. On to our famous birthdays. On the same day in 1918, Sidney Gottlieb was born. Gottlieb was a chemist and spy master best known for heading the CIA's MK Ultra project. MK Ultra is an infamous experiment of the CIA's work in assassinations, mind control, and crazy experiments using new drugs. Although much of the evidence was destroyed, the remainder has inspired a lot of conspiracy theories. The experiments include everything from drugging unwitting suspects to torture, along with the CIA's later Project Stargate, an attempt to harness psychics for both spying and war purposes. MK Ultra inspired the television show Stranger Things. Gottlieb was born in New York City, New York.
I love hearing about, I'm extremely annoyed is putting it lightly, but extremely annoyed about MK Ultra because it's so unethical.
And
just dosing people up with massive doses of LSD, way beyond what most people would take.
And nobody suspected a thing. That's the scary part.
Well, they probably did when they started tripping, but they were just dosing people up with huge doses of LSD to see what would happen, and torturing people. It's not right.
Oh, this guy's career is amazing. As infamous as it is, it's amazing to look at. The reason why he's doing it is to crush the human psyche.
Yeah. Try to find ways to absolutely break people and get them to do your bidding. So absolutely unethical. But I love reading about it because it is so nuts. They were basically just throwing stuff at the wall to see what would happen.
Yeah, and and it was also to one up the Chinese and the Russians at the time as well.
Yeah.
He was I remember he started working at CIA. The CIA was ramping up its search for a way to control the human minds, falsely believing the Soviets and communist China had already mastered the process and would soon use it against them. Oh, this guy is insane. I will say that.
Oh yeah. The people behind MK Ultra, specifically him and the people working for him, absolutely evil. I mean, a lot of the things the CIA does is evil. Oh, so by the way, I'm not suicidal. I will not commit suicide.
So this is your last will and testament, huh?
Well, the CIA are kind of known for a habit of knocking off anyone they don't like. The CIA are the people who went to JFK and said, by the way, we can come up with an excuse to invade Cuba. We'll just bomb people in America. So they were going to false flag and kill American citizens so they could have an excuse to invade Cuba. What was Cuba doing wrong? Being communist. The CIA also led the overthrow of democratically elected governments in South America to benefit US businesses.
I can imagine some CIA coming in right now and just going, this recording is closed.
Yeah, CIA are kind of bad people a lot of the time.
Yep. As evil as they are, they gotta admire their efficiency.
Well, we got great shows like Stranger Things out of it. But I wouldn't say the CIA are very efficient. I mean, they were doing a lot of things that didn't actually work. But we're running way over time, so what's next?
So, on to our events of interest. On the 3rd of August in 1977, Tandy Corporation announced the TRS-80, affectionately known as the Trash 80. A home computer starting at $400. That's American, by the way. And that translates to almost $2,000 today. An Associated Press article said the TRS-80 could do a payroll for up to 15 people in a small business, teach children mathematics, store your favorite recipes, or keep track of an investment portfolio. It can also play cards. Despite skepticism, Radio Shack was overwhelmed by hundreds of thousands of pre-orders. The TRS-80 was also sold in Australia under the Dick Smith branding.
Yeah, lots of things. Dick Smith was basically the Aussie Radio Shack back in the day.
Wait,
Dick
when did
Smith
Tandy
also had
come
his.
in then?
Sorry?
When did Tandy come in then?
Well, they weren't sold as Tandy. They were sold as Dick Smith TRS-80s.
Okay.
So Radio Shack and Dick Smith both rebranded a lot of products so you can buy a TRS-80 that has a Dick Smith logo on it.
Yeah, but then there was Tandy International. There was Tandy Electronics, though, mind you.
Yeah, Tandy produced them, but sold them under the brands Dick Smith and actually, I've just googled it. I'm a bit wrong. The Dick Smith Super 80 was a clone of the Trash 80. So technically different computers, but back in the day, they basically saw a interesting design, and then everyone made their own version of it.
So, why the Trash 80 name?
I think because it did have a lot of flaws and quirks. It had it was sort of cheap and nasty.
Fair enough, fair enough.
I kind of miss the traditional Dick Smith, though.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm old enough to ever actually remember the original Dick Smith, but seeing all the stuff that they sell, I actually have on my workbench right now a voltage tester screwdriver. You know those ones that light up when there's electricity?
Yeah.
It's still in the original packaging, and I sort of inherited it when I moved out, and Dad dumped any of the electrical work stuff that he could onto me, all the soldering irons and stuff.
I used to love the good old Dick Smith electronics.
Is that a Dickies soldering iron? No, it's a Master Tool. I don't know if that's a Dickies brand.
Do you remember the Dick Smith books? The Fun Wave with the Fun Wave electronics and all the other and
actually, yes, I do now. I remember. I must remember it because I remember my brother getting as a present when he was younger a Dick Smith kit. I'm pretty sure it was a Dick Smith. Do they have PDFs of that? I want to download them all. But it was a Dick Smith kit for making a speaker.
Oh, that would have been cool.
You can get similar things at JCar these days, but even JCar is not as good as the stories I've heard.
Fair enough.
I love the cover of this one on the thumbnail here. A beer-powered radio. That's different to the usual lemon battery.
Oh, yeah.
So there's Triple X as the brand of the beer instead of 4X.
Can you imagine, hey, wait a minute.
Completely safe, ideal for all ages. Excuse me? Yeah, actually, was the Crystal Radio... I built a Crystal Radio when I was young. It must have been probably a Dickie kit as well.
But anyways,
one more story about Dick Smith though.
Yep, sure.
You know how Dick Smith brand have their fingers in all sorts of pies? There's like Dick Smith breakfast cereal and Dick Smith electronics.
Oh yeah, the Dick Smith Vegemite. Yeah.
Yeah. There was also a brand of Dick Smith matches. We have a common brand of matches in Australia called Redheads. You want to know what the Dick Smith matches were called?
Dick it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Dick seems like a funny guy.
I gotta admit though, as much as you loathe the guy, he is absolutely gold.
Do we loathe him? I mean, he's rich, but has he done anything else wrong?
No. I mean, there was actually an interview with Waleed Ali with Dick Smith, and Ali was trying to like do a gotcha on him, and then Dick Smith go like, actually, Waleed, you're stupid. He says that outright,
Okay.
though, and
Well,
people
to
were
be
like,
fair, Waleed is stupid.
yeah, but man, the outrage was hilarious. They're like, oh my
Yeah.
god.
I think these days Dick Smith does a lot of work in. It's been years since I've seen a documentary he's done, but he did a series of documentaries about how.
He's also a billionaire, isn't he?
Well, yeah, he's got tons of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's also, but he does good stuff. Like he advocated in the in the late 90s. Sorry, he advocated for Australia Day to be renamed First Fleet Day in recognition that it's not a day for all Australians. But he has some documentaries about the economy and population and all that, trying to work out how we're going to solve the sustainability issues that we're coming up to. Because we're getting to the point now that there are tons of people on Earth. We're approaching what's considered the holding capacity of Earth. He was a scout too. I don't know anyone who was a scout who was a bad person. Actually, I do, but
anyways, I think we're kind of veering off a different
anyway,
tangent.
Dick Smith, bring back the original Dick Smith electronics. Do it.
So finally, on the 3rd of August, we're seeing a pattern here.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia experiment was released. This film was loosely based on the real-world experiments to degauss of warship's hull to help protect it from magnetically triggered space sea mines. The urban legend grew to involve teleportation, time travel, and even crewmen being fused with the hull of the ship. The film depicts some crewmen being warped 40 years into the future, arriving in the 1980s, where they have to seek help from the scientists who ran the experiment to return to their own time. Suspiciously similar to the inverse of the plot of Back to the Future, which came out a year later. Philadelphia experiment is also made a joke about actor Ronald Reagan becoming U.S. president. The climax of the film takes place at the Wendover Air Base, where the Enola Gay was prepared for the bombing of Hiroshima. The US Navy refused to support the film to avoid associations with the legend, which probably just made them look more suspicious. You gotta admit, that would have been a good movie.
Yeah, I was meaning to track down a copy of it. Couldn't find it on any of the streaming services I have access to.
Maybe someone will post it up on YouTube. But anyways, that's all we have for this week. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's not Canada.com.
Hold on. I found something Dick Smith did wrong.
Oh, yeah?
Supporting Pauline Hanson.
Yeah. Although, mind you, the reason why he did it was because of economics. That's what I've heard. And he goes on to say, "Well, you don't know what you're talking about. Shut up."
That's what he's saying. I don't agree with everything he says, obviously, but he does have some good points, I think.
But you can find us on that's.canada.com as well. We have an archive of our old episodes, and you can also find new podcasts such as Cartoon Time Machine, which is visiting different cartoons and eras and animations. In each episode, the animates, who are two idiots with film degrees, discuss their takes on beautiful or hated cartoons of the past, present, and the future. That'd be a good one to check out.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Yeah, I wonder what would their view of Disney cartoons would be like.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. So anyways, that's all we have for today. Take care of yourselves and stay hydrated.
We'll see you next time.
Here we go.